Hello, my name is John Bynum. I'm in the English department at Fresno State. I'm a Discovery Tablet Initiative faculty member, and I'm going to tell you about a course I'm teaching in the fall that I am redesigning so that it will be tablet enhanced.
English 31 Readings in British Literature is a sophomore level course. It's designed for English majors who are just beginning their English major studies. The course covers a whole range of literature from the Middle Ages to contemporary times, and we cover a wide variety of genres, including the novel, drama, and poetry. I will be using tablets in this course in 4 primary ways. First, students will be communicating and interacting with their tablets. They'll be doing this both in class and outside of class, with one another and with the instructor. I'm in the process of creating content that the students will be able to read and interact with using their tablets. Rather than purchasing expensive textbooks, anthologies of literature, the students will be reading online materials that are available for free, and they'll be using apps that will allow them to take notes and to interact with the text just as they would with a regular print page. Students are also going to be creating digital media projects using presentation software, using curating software and apps so that they can share with one another the kinds of things they're learning about literature in new and innovative ways. One way that students will be communicating with their tablets is through the use of Twitter. With Twitter, we'll be able to create a classroom back channel, a live chat of what's going on in the course. This allows the students to participate in a collective note-taking enterprise, and of course, through Twitter, students can communicate with one another and with the instructor, and I can communicate with them. We'll also be using Nerf, which is a social media platform. It's fairly new. It allows for the creation of a Twitter chat channel. It also allows us to archive classroom discussions and to replay earlier chats so that students who miss class can go back and replay a chat as it occurred in real time. Students will be creating a Twitter account. I'm going to ask them to do this by the first day of class, and they'll use that as a way to introduce themselves to the other members of class. And then from then on out, we'll be using a hashtag designed specifically for English 31 so that we can easily locate all of the tweets that the students are generating about the course. As I mentioned, Nerf is a fairly new platform, and it allows people to use a hashtag and then to create a Twitter chat channel based on that hashtag. So with a hashtag that's designed specifically for our course, students will be able to participate in this Twitter chat, and we can save that classroom session, archive it so that students can go back and take a look at what happened during any given class session. Here's an example of what a chat room looks like in Nerf. You can see that a hashtag has been created for this particular chat, and then the different participants are chiming in with the use of that hashtag and interacting with one another. And you can take a look at past chats, you can schedule upcoming chats, and you can also archive chats so that people can go back and replay them. I've begun to create content for English 31. I'm creating learning modules. Each of these modules will center on a different era of English literature, highlighting a specific work that we're going to be reading and spending a lot of time with during that module. This will replace expensive textbooks, and it will be more interactive. It will be tailored to the specific demands of my course. So I'm actually creating the content for the course rather than relying on a textbook and letting that drive my curriculum. The content creation software that I'm exploring right now is SoftChalk Cloud, and I've already taken one webinar about SoftChalk. I'm excited about the possibilities of it. It creates an immersive and rich multimedia experience, much like iBooks, but it's available across platforms and across devices. It also allows you to build in assessments and assignments right into the modules that you create. This is an example of a course that was created using SoftChalk Cloud. It's a linguistics course, and it provides information, images, and one of the things I really like is when you highlight with your finger particular words or phrases, then a pop-up window appears with a definition of that phrase. So in this particular case, although you can't see the pop-up, you can see that Rosetta Stone has been hyperlinked, and if a student or a user in this course were to place their finger over Rosetta Stone, a definition will come up, a definition that the instructor came up with and thinks is useful for this particular course. This is an example of the content that I am creating for the course. I've already begun to write in content for the Middle Ages section of the course. This particular page demonstrates what I've done with Beowulf. I provided a basic introduction to it. I review the plot. I talk about some of the characteristics of Beowulf, the major figures and the setting, as well as some of the critical history of it. So this provides the students with an introduction to a work that they'll be reading toward the beginning of class. So instead of reading expensive textbooks, students will be reading online editions of major literary works. Most of these works are available in public domain, and I have been doing a lot of research to find the best study editions of those texts. These versions are readable through a variety of applications like iBooks, iAnnotate, and Adobe Reader. Students will be using annotating tools, highlighters, sticky notes, drawing tools in order to annotate their texts, just like they would a regular page in a textbook. And they'll also be able to embed audio, hyperlinks, and video if they choose to. In some cases, the students will be collaborating on these annotations, effectively allowing them to become the editors of the works that they're studying. An example of one of these digital texts that I'm talking about is a newly available edition of Beowulf called the Grinnell Beowulf. This is an edition of Beowulf that was created by undergraduates at Grinnell College. It's a translation that these students created themselves under the supervision of their instructor over a course of a couple of years. And they've also created helpful notes by undergraduates for undergraduates. Because this is a translation that was created by undergraduates for other undergraduates, I think that this will be a particularly useful text to use for my students who are just beginning to study English literature. And some of those works can be somewhat opaque and difficult to understand, like Beowulf is. But the fact that this is a student edition that was created while students were actually studying the work themselves means that students, I think, will be able to relate even better to the text than they would have with a scholarly edition, perhaps designed for researchers or for graduate students. With a wide variety of apps, students will be able to annotate their text either using their finger or a stylus so that they can make notes in the text just as they would in a regular book. Also, one of the things I really like about this particular edition is that you have notes that refer to passages that need further explanation. So this is a really good study edition of a text, and the students will get quite a lot out of it. It's actually not available in print. It's only available as a digital edition. This last semester in another class, I had students experiment with the idea of becoming editors. And so they created poetry miscellanies or little anthologies of the works of major women writers from the 18th century. In this case, we're looking at a poem by Anne Finch, the Countess of Winchelsea. 3 students were part of this project. They became the editors of this particular poem. They transcribed it. They created hyperlinks to send the reader somewhere else to learn more about the author, and they also created footnotes which they felt were useful for better understanding the poem. And so I plan to do this also in English 31, allow the students to become the editors of perhaps shorter, more contained works. I used Google Docs for this experiment, and that worked out really well. Finally, students will be using their tablets to create digital media projects. And these will be projects that allow them to use Web 2.0 tools and applications that help them be more innovative in thinking about their study of English literature. I hope that these assignments will spur on critical thinking, allow students to curate the kinds of things that they research and collect about literature that they study, and also to give them opportunities to be digital writers. In the past, I have used digital media projects in classes, and they will serve as the basis for developing some new and meaningful assignments for English 31. Students' exploration of digital media can serve as a basis for these alternative assignments. In other words, they may be looking at apps that I'm not familiar with, or with web tools that I haven't yet discovered. And so if they find things that they think will really be fun and exciting and useful for the study of literature, then I'm absolutely open to having them come to me with those projects. And the assignments that I'm talking about can be complemented by more traditional research assignments or reflective written responses. One example of a digital media project that I thought was very successful is one that some students who took a course from me last fall completed. And it was based on the publication of Olaudah Equiano's autobiography, his interesting narrative, his slave narrative. The students adopted personae, created Twitter accounts for those, and they then created tweets that they shared with one another. They interacted with one another as though they were different figures from English society at the time that this book was being published. And it allowed them not only to talk about the work, but also to engage in a larger discussion about slavery and to kind of take positions that were common during the abolitionist movement. Some of them were very much pro the abolition of slavery, and some of them had to take positions that required them to be defenders or apologists for slavery. Students were able to create really interesting posts on Twitter. For example, here you see an embedded image of a slave ship, and you've also got hyperlinks that the students were using in these interactions with one another. After the students engaged in this project, we collected all of the tweets using Storify. And so all of the different tweets that were related to this project were collected and curated using the software Storify.
Those are some of the ways that I plan on using tablets in my class this fall. I'm very much looking forward to the experiment. Thanks for listening.